Hey guys, Dr. Mike Israetel here for Renaissance Periodization and Juggernaut Training Systems. I'm going to make a short little video to address a very common question that we get, which is how do I align my dieting phases properly with my training phases, particularly for strength sports, powerlifting, weightlifting, things of that nature. So we can think of dieting as having three different styles or kinds, and then training of having fundamentally kind of like two. So the dieting can be mass gaining or muscle gain dieting, where you're trying to gain weight and probably muscle. It can be maintenance dieting, where you're trying to maintain your current body weight, maintain muscle, and increase your performance. And fat loss or cutting dieting, which is where you reduce your body fat, hopefully keeping your muscle and your strength, and go on to bigger and better things after that. So those are the three diet types. There are really three different training types, but for the purposes of interaction, they lump into two general ones. So this actually, the answer to this question is a lot simpler than it could be. There is a high volume phase, also known as a work capacity phase, a general preparatory phase, or a hypertrophy phase in most of these sports, where you do lots of more reps than usual, higher reps than usual, more sets than usual, usually with the goal of improving work capacity, getting a lot of technical practice, or making sure that your muscles are growing, and or making sure that there's sufficient stimulus for them not to shrink away, which we'll get back to in a second. The second general class of training phase is either strength or peaking. Now, there's technically two different phases in there, strength and peaking, but for them, they're basically characterized by relatively low volumes of training, lower reps, heavier weight, usually fewer sets, oftentimes a lower frequency of overload, so you don't lift super heavy as often as you do, or you don't lift hard as often as you do on a high volume hypertrophy phase. So basically, strength slash peaking, and then we have hypertrophy. And the question is, how do these phases align? Because there's three different kinds of dieting phases, two fundamentally different kinds of training phases, and we'll kind of start, the answer is relatively simple, and it starts with what not to do. Here's the deal. When you are training for strength and or peaking, in most situations, the stimulus coming into the muscles saying, hey, there's a need for me to be here, which is primarily that of volume, lots of reps and sets, is very much diminished. Now your nervous system is significantly stimulated during strength and peaking training, but your muscular system, not so much. So if there's not a really big reason given at the cellular level for the muscles to stick around, any perturbation to their structure from other sources like nutritional has a bigger effect and can potentially result in muscle loss. So the first big rule is if you are training for strength and or peaking, especially hard cutting, fat loss diets are not a good idea, because what you end up having is a real big stimulus for lose tissue, lose tissue, lose tissue. Normally your body would kind of look at its directional logic and say lose tissue, but we're doing high volume training, so we still need the muscle. But in that case, if it's peaking or strength training, there's not that much volume. Your body goes, okay, I got to lose tissue to make sure I feed all of my essential organs because there's not enough calories to go around. Looks like muscle's not that busy. The nervous system is, so it's taken care of just fine. But then you start losing muscle because the body's not as prone to keeping it around. So if you're in a strength or peaking phase, that kind of rules out, in most cases, fat loss phases. Now, you can get away with a little bit of fat loss, very slow fat loss, but especially aggressive fat loss is a very bad idea during strength and peaking phases. Another concern, if you are massing, you are trying to put on muscle, there has to be a need from a training perspective to get you bigger. If you are massing but you're training in a strength slash peaking variety with low volumes, your body has a bunch of extra calories coming in and goes, what should I do with these calories? I can put it to fat, I can use it for current energy, or I can maybe give it a little bit of it to muscle. If it examines that kind of scenario, analogically, of course, doesn't actually think things through, but the chemical pathways are built this way, where the body will go, ooh, okay, so it looks like there's not a whole lot being done on the muscle front, if it's low volume strength and peaking training, and it goes, I'll just put more of this extra food to fat. So if you want to gain muscle, yes, eating hypercalorically on a gaining plan is important, but you must pair gaining plans with high volume training. So your hypertrophy slash work capacity training is a good time, thus, to both reduce your body fat and your body weight and increase your body fat and body weight. When you are training for strength and or peaking, you can reduce or increase them just a tiny little bit, but it's a really good idea to keep them nice and stable. So maintenance is the perfect phase for strength and peaking. Meanwhile, high volume phases are perfect for either massing or cutting, depending on your goals. One additional consideration I got to mention to kind of finish out this talk is that during especially the peaking phase, you want to get really used to lifting with the body that you have. An unchanging body, one that is at maintenance and has the same limb ratios and leverages and the same feel, because when you're racking a clean and you weigh 5 or 10 kilos more or less than usual, things fit a little bit differently. Your bench press doesn't touch in the exact same place. You might be able to pull a harder arch if you're actually leaner because you have less fat back there to pull through, and it ends up changing your arc or trajectory. So what happens is, if you're losing or gaining weight while peaking, at the same time that you're supposed to be trying to learn how to move in the most efficient manner, you're moving the goalpost for the body to learn about itself. So it ends up being that, yeah, you might have had really good cleans weighing 90 kilos, but as you're moving up 92, 93, 94, your position of hitting your second pull in your clean might alter just by a very small amount, but enough to not let you PR or PR as much. It'll make the lift more awkward. So from that perspective as well, it's a really good idea that once you're done with your high volume training, and for sure your strength training, if you're in a peaking training, there's got to be a real good reason for you to move your body weight up and down, because the default idea, as soon as you hit peaking, to make sure that you already want to be at that body weight you want to be. Hopefully that answers some questions. Let us know in the comments, and if we have to clear anything up, we'll make another video. Folks, thanks so much for joining in. See you next time.
Grind Sports Nutrition is committed to providing athletes with the highest quality supplements to fuel their training. Grind products are designed by Renaissance Periodization and contain only ingredients and dosages with substantial bodies of evidence to support their effectiveness. No fluff or fillers. Get on your grind, because your success is earned, not given.